Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to our what do we call it? Managing Anxiety Summit. And this afternoon we have my very good friend Carlos Saba, who's going to be talking about entrepreneurship and business, but in a very interesting perspective. Really, we had a nice little conversation the other day, which actually was only 5 minutes, but made a real difference actually about the way I'm looking at what I'm sharing and tips I could offer to others. And I'm looking forward to learning more. You've given some points that you shared with me about things to cover. I'm looking forward to doing that. But before we start, could you share a little bit about the Happy Startup School that you've started and what you guys offer?
So it's one of those things. It's I don't know about anyone else who's running businesses or doing something that's not quite out of the box. Bit of a startup journey where you're doing something new. It evolves. So the way I would describe the Happy Startup School at the moment is we're a community of people looking to make money, do good, and be happy. And so who want to put happiness at the core of their business, but still want to learn how to do business. And so it's trying to combine, basically get that knowledge of how to create and serve people in a way that's truly authentic, but appreciating that journey of creating that business is a journey of learning about yourself. And we do some practical stuff around marketing and creating digital products and kind of online courses around business strategy and business modeling. But we also create spaces for conversations about what's really going on. And that's where the community aspect, a part of this, is really important for us, is how can we create a safe space for us to share our knowledge, our challenges, our experiences, so that we all benefit. And so it's a school, but not as you know it. And it's about happiness, but not just about sitting around feeling contented.
Okay. Wow, there's so much there. Maybe just before I dive into some questions that I wanted to ask, I think you've turned it into like a digital community a while back, actually, and I'm sure you're glad about that, especially in that particular situation. But you're both online and offline as community. What kind of support do you offer people as part of that online community? What goes on in your community that people could maybe tap into now?
Yeah. So I think the most powerful and most valuable aspect is holding space. And so we do a lot of webinars just like this, online meetings. So around learning sometimes. So we do webinars. One of them that was done recently was around start with who. So this idea of how do you understand the person you want to serve, and through that understanding know what products to build. And they're usually between 6 to 12 people. We have a facilitator, and it's an emergent learning journey. Someone sharing their knowledge, people asking questions, and then helping them unblock the way forward. We have spaces called Action Cafe. So this is essentially virtual co-working. So we have a lot of people who are freelancers or solo founders, either working from home or working remotely. They don't have a team. And so and that's classic thing of, when you've got this to-do list that's massive, what do you do first? How do you keep yourself accountable? We create a space every morning between 9 to 12 where people can log in. Actually 10 to 12, people can log in. You say what you're going to do. Everyone goes around, commits to something. They work for an hour online. They just mute their screen on Zoom. Wow. And they come back after an hour and they report back how far they've got. And you do that twice, and to people, but actually getting work done. And then finally, we do these things called care pods. And this is much more about the holding space thing. And this is really a space where you usually get about 6 people, lasts about an hour. And it's purely a space for you to say what's on your mind, and for people to reflect back to you what they heard. No fixing, no judgment, no advice, purely reflecting, and then you leave. And that's really purely a space of connection and self-processing.
So there's a lot of kind of emotional support here through the sharing and the holding space, as well as practical as well, it sounds like.
Definitely. And I think that the thing that I'm more passionate about these days is the underlying emotional, motivational values-based aspect to the business stuff. I feel there's a lot of stuff out there around how to do Facebook ads, how to build an online course, how to facilitate a Zoom call. And we've experienced as well when we were an agency, we can give people lots of knowledge. Whether they do it or not is not to do with how clever they are. It's usually to do with are they clear about why they're doing this thing and how it's going to serve them and what they're scared of that might be coming.
Wonderful. Well, one of the things that's popping into my head, I saw it on a blog post you shared recently, and you shared it to me about this chat we're going to have, is about the finite and the infinite game. I don't know if there's something that you want to start by sharing. I love that concept. What's that all about?
So it's something. The original book I think is called Finite and Infinite Games by James Cass. James P. Simon Sinek, who talks about infinite games. And the thing I really love about that, in terms of a simple definition, is like a finite game has a beginning and an end. Of course, it's finite. But there's a winner and there's a loser. And the purpose of the game is to win. An infinite game is the purpose of the game is to keep the game going. So you either all win or you all lose. You all win if the game keeps on going on. You all lose if the game stops. And so, I feel when I started business, the narrative was dominated by the infinite game mindset. How do we dominate them? How do we capitalize on an opportunity, get there first, be the first to market? How then do we dominate the market? How do we become the main player?
Isn't that the finite game?
And that's the finite game.
The finite game. Okay, yeah.
That thought about how, and that means success. When you're the biggest player in the pond, and basically you're essentially having a monopoly. It sounds like over the business, and that was a way that didn't resonate for me in terms of business, because I knew I didn't have that cutthroat attitude, and also I didn't know what that gave me in terms of feeling. More stuff, but more money, more kudos. It still felt a bit empty. The infinite game mindset for me then was just revelation. It's like, how do we all do our work in such a way that we can contribute to each other's stuff and keep this circle of stuff going, whatever that stuff is, whether that's money, love, help, and that being a measure of success. Because then it's less about me being best or being better. It's about me being of service, and me being of service in a way that is really in tune with the way I can work, the gifts that I have. And that for me felt like, that's it. It's the infinite game. And then the infinite game within that is then learning about me as I do that journey.
Oh, I like that. I love that concept. It's much more about, rather than being fear-based, it's about generosity-based, right? And it's actually, if we are able to share all of our skills and our knowledge more, then others will benefit from that, and everyone will benefit from it. It kind of links a little bit similar to how this virus is spreading in a way. Like, if we work together, have you thought about that analogy or connection?
Yes. So I am hesitant to talk about the virus, mainly because I've seen how when you start making comments about this thing that's going on at so many levels, and I've seen that and we can talk about maybe a bit later about how that's affecting people. But when I think about how we can respond, there is a collectivist way and there's an individualist way. The collectivist way is like, how can we all do the right thing so that we all can, survive? And the individualist way is like, I'm going to do my own things to make sure I survive. And that makes me think, and I'm not sure if this is correct, and this is a bit crude, but I think of the system or the social structures in Asia and China, and I think of the social structures that we have in the West, and there's as I understand it and what I've heard, there's a different mentality around society. One's a very collectivist, maybe very obedient, but very about us mentality. And in the West and US, I think is probably stereotypical of this, is a very much, I can do it on my own, and I can make the life I want for myself. And it's interesting how that, that really spurs forward the entrepreneurial mindset. But then in times like this, when we do need to pull together, we need to get our egos out of the way. What does that mean in terms of actually finding a solution.
Wow, oh, that's amazing. I like that. Yeah, yeah. It makes me think about evolution, the way evolution works, and how just like individuals survive from evolution, it's also groups as well. And I think those that will grow and thrive are the ones at the moment, ones that can work together and can work together towards a goal that's beneficial for everyone, rather than the individuals competing with each other. Interestingly.
Yeah, I'm interested in that whole aspect of evolution and how people perceive it, because there's that classic, and I think business hijacked this a lot, survival of the fittest. They talk about survival of the fittest, the people who go the fittest. What does that mean? And why an alternative suggestion is the survival of the people who, the ones that can adapt.
Yeah. By the way, Charles Darwin, I don't think he ever said survival of the fittest. I remember it
I
was
heard that as well.
survival of the most empathic, most compassionate, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think survival of the ones that can adapt to the problem at hand.
Yeah.
And if it means adapting to the problem at hand is pulling together and not blaming each other and actually just looking to help rather than hinder, maybe that is evolution in its way.
Yeah. So you said you've been having a lot of Zoom calls, you've been chatting to a lot of people in the last few weeks. What are you finding are the main kind of challenges coming up, and ways that, what kind of techniques or viewpoints that people are finding beneficial at the moment? What are you finding?
I'm loath to generalize, but I was very inspired by a tweet that my wife shared with me. And I'm trying to look for it now, if I can name the person, because I really should try and get the word out about this. Her name is Dr. Aisha Ahmad.
Okay.
I will share the tweet in the chat right now so that everyone can
great. Yeah.
check it out. Let's see, all panelists and attendees. Boom. And so I'm inspired by, she's been there, she's lived through many disasters, and she's an academic, and she talks to the interplay between being and doing, and also kind of adapting and stabilizing before acting. And the way I interpreted that was, different steps to follow for me personally, but maybe it's of help to others during this time of crisis, upheaval, and uncertainty. The first point for me is creating space to process what's going on. So rather than just reacting and trying to do stuff, we need some time to just recognize this and the different things that are going on. So really taking a pause and just sensing what's going on inside you, as well as sensing what's going on around you. And that for me was the first thing to do. Next, self-care. Because if we don't have enough sleep, if we're not eating enough, if we've not rested well enough, we will act from limited resources to be able to think clearly and creatively. So that was the next thing. How can I look after myself or be aware of whether I'm okay before trying to act? The other thing is part of that, then centering your energy. I call it centering your energy, is like really understanding when I do act, where is that coming from? Is that a negative energy that I'm putting out there, an energy of like fear? Or is that a kind of more grounded energy of being able to give and to be able to be compassionate? And what's the reply to it as a comment, create a program, do a webinar? What is the real intention behind that? And am I aware of that? Then next is, if I am going to do something, keep it super simple. What is it? Don't try anything new. Don't try anything clever. What is it in my power? What is it, I know, eyes closed, that I can do that will offer help? Rather than trying something different, what can I do that I know really well, and put that out into the world and use that? Because it's going to be complex enough with everything going on to try and make things work. If I try something new as well, that's another level of complexity that's going to be a challenge. An important thing for me as well is routine and knowing what I'm doing when. It's very easy now, particularly if you are not used to working from home, that you don't have a routine anymore. You don't know, you could find yourself staring at social media for too long, or you don't have lunch at the right time, or because your routine and your habits are totally out of whack. So I would really urge people, and I'm trying to do this for myself, is like work out what that schedule is. Particularly now we've got 2 kids at home, and both my wife and I are working from home. We can't run our old routine, but we do need to find a routine, or else we won't be able to work effectively. So what is that for you? And then this idea of sensing what is really needed. And I'm very conscious of this within our community and working with entrepreneurs, particularly people who are starting businesses for the first time. They're very wedded to an idea that they have. It's, oh, this great idea. This is missing in the world. I need to do it. And there's a lack of sensing actually what is really needed right now. What can I listen to? So rather than trying to say stuff and put stuff out, what do I sense? What do I hear? What can I feel is important? So then work from that basis. How can I be of service to the needs that are out there? And there's a really lovely quote, if you're looking at that Twitter feed, about work, and I don't want to misquote it, because I thought it was quite beautiful the way she put it. If I can find it here. Yes. This phenomenon should change how we understand the world. So let this distract you from your work. So we've been used to our day-to-day work. Distract you from your work, because the world is supposed to be our work. So we might try and plow on to do whatever we were doing before. You know, we run our online community, and I'm trying to automate the processes. I could just plow on with that. Or I could say, actually, the world is my work. What is it I need to do that serves for the world at the moment, rather than trying to automate stuff that doesn't really make a difference for anyone? Mm. And then the final thing is like focusing on what really matters. And I think it's connected to that. The world is your work, is like, trying to launch a new program or rehash your business model or something like that isn't what matters at the moment, particularly the next couple of weeks, next few days. For me, what really matters is who can you help in your local community, or in your family, in your local circle, your friends, your local community, or your extended community. But trying to reach out to people that are beyond you at this moment, which you might not be able to impact as well as the people around you, I feel that might be a step too far. And so whether that's in the business sense or a personal sense of just connecting, I feel like that helps us ground us rather than running around too quickly as headless chickens. Sorry, that was a bit of a monologue there.
No, that was wonderful. Let me read that out again just for people. So the steps are to center space to process, first of all. And I love that. Create space to process. That sense of, I was finding myself doing this and others as well, with that sense of rushing in too much, like, oh, what should I do now? What should I do next? And reacting to it, rather than actually, maybe I just need a few days to just process this. And I know, there's other pressures around money and family and stuff, but maybe I really need to invest a few days to let it process a bit more. And the self-care, definitely really important, because I'm sure people are struggling with sleep and stuff, with more anxiety and not eating regularly. Center your energy, the mindful stuff we've been talking about. Simplify what you do is really good. And I think you touched on another thing when you talked about that, which is not just simplify, but also what are your passions and strengths. And so whatever you do, yes, it's great to meet the needs of the world, but it's nice to do that in a way that's lining up with your strengths as well. Because of sometimes there is that need, but there's many people that could do that need, whereas you have, you may be much better at something else, so you can serve it in a different way. Wonderful. And then it was scheduling, so getting into a routine, sensing what's needed. Would you say that's a bit to do with an intuitive sense as well through the space?
Yeah, there's the intuition, and also it's that whole "we have 2 ears, 1 mouth," aphorism. It's like, listen more, and then you'll know what to do next.
Okay, I should stop talking and listen more then. Focus on what matters. Okay, there's another bullet point that you made and you shared with me, which is about this concept of emotional hygiene. I know we're very good at physical hygiene now, hopefully. But are you saying that we should be washing our brain for 20 seconds?
Yeah, well, this is, it's kind of like, essentially it's being aware of what you're letting inside. And it comes from a post I wrote a few days ago, which was again inspired by someone else, and I forget his name, is Dr. Judd. He does these coronavirus anxiety videos.
Oh yeah. Judd Brewer.
Rudd Brewer, that's it.
Judd Brewer, yeah.
Judd Brewer. And what I learned from his videos, first video, was kind of what's going on in our brains. And this idea of fear is around, and understanding fear is normal. Fear is natural. Fear is that primitive instinct to survive. And that's right in our amygdala. That's the core of who we are. And what we've done, we're talking about evolution, we've evolved to be able to think and plan and dream. And so that's the beauty of human beings above anyone else, is that we're able to create these abstract concepts and allows us to plan and allows us to think. And the thing about planning is, to plan well, you need information. If you don't have enough information, that causes uncertainty when you're planning, and uncertainty creates anxiety. So if you've got fear and lack of information, that creates anxiety. And that's where we wake up in the middle of the night and go, what's happening? What's going to be happening next? Because you don't have enough information to act on. And then this idea of emotional hygiene is, when you have that anxiety, and you see people doing things that you can't understand, even though you know that's the wrong thing to do, i.e. buy more toilet paper, you end up doing it yourself. And this thing about human beings have this kind of mirror neurons, I think they're called, and I'm probably really simplifying the psychology here, but we reflect the emotions of others, is that then we get that contagion. And we then start doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And then that propagates and that creates panic. So that fear plus emotional contagion equals panic. And then suddenly everything goes a bit weird.
Okay.
And so the emotional hygiene for me is about really being aware of what you put in, and bring in, what you see, what you read, scrolling endlessly through social media or picking the right news sources, and then also what you put out, because that's essentially putting out bad stuff, as Judd Brooke was it, is like sneezing on someone else's brain. and that's what we don't want.
Oh my God, I don't know if that's a good analogy or a bad analogy.
Beautiful pictures.
I got a picture of someone like
exactly. Well, that's it. That's what, when you are scrolling through that feed of, like, whether it's WhatsApp's a killer these days, whether it's WhatsApp or Twitter or Facebook, it's essentially all those horrible messages are infecting your brain.
So yeah, one of our speakers, Andrew Johnson, talked about how we should kind of filter our social media. Like on Twitter, you can create lists of particular people that you really want to see, and then follow those lists rather than just following the whole feed. I thought that was quite a good tip. But what about media in general? Are you trying to consume less news and stuff, or are you, as soon as you're off this, you're back on what's the latest from Trump and
for a while now, even before all of this happened, I've been off generally everything, news, social media.
Really?
I've tried to, I've taken the attitude, whether it's right or wrong, I think the different people have different views on this, of if it's important to me, I'll find out about it through someone. I occasionally check out the news regularly now because of what's going on. But even now, I think earlier this week, actually from last week to midweek this week, I was every single day at 5:00 waiting for the announcement from the government.
Yeah.
But at the moment, yeah, I think it's trying to be informed enough without overloading myself with information. And so the thing I have had the habit of is actually watching the WHO press releases.
Yeah, I love those.
I can trust them. And there's a guy, I keep on forgetting his name. He's an Irish guy. I keep on asking my wife his name. Is Michael?
Oh yeah, is it Michael Sinclair maybe?
I'm not sure.
He's the executive director, right?
Something like that. He's fantastic. He just says
it
how it is, and he's really clear. And I trust him.
Yeah.
And so that's for me, is trying to find a few trusted sources rather than too much other stuff.
You don't trust random updates on WhatsApp then?
No, those pictures of I just don't want to even
we won't go down there.
Won't even go down there, because some people really need them and some people really value them.
Are you talking about fake news or something else?
Sorry?
Are you talking about fake news? I'm talking about fake news. What are you talking about? I'm like, do people value fake news?
I think some people do, you know. I think it really, because if it talks to their own, and this is the thing for me, is that if it talks to their own worldview,
Mm,
if it talks to the hurt that they're feeling and the personal circumstances they're in, I believe people embrace that stuff
mm,
because it validates them and it feels like, yeah, no, that's I you know, that's what I'm feeling, and so it makes me feel like I'm okay.
yeah, yeah. The other thing I wanted to, which I loved that you mentioned again very briefly yesterday or the day before, was this risk register you're doing, and
Mm.
said that you found it very helpful for your own organization, and I think others would too. Actually, it's a nice formal way of doing it. So can you talk us through what you guys did, or?
Yeah, so this really came about because we were talking to our mentor yesterday, and there's so many things. We run offline events. You know, we have a retreat in June. We had a retreat in June, altitude. We have our summer camp in September. Um, we have other aspects of our business that are now potentially going to be affected by what's going on. And there's so many things we could do, and so many things that we think we need to do, and so many things that we should do. And I don't know about all of you out there, the priority list. Actually, there's no priority. It's just a list. It's not even a list. It's just like a mass of stuff to do, which creates anxiety and fear and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So what he shared with us, which I quite liked, and this is a very simple version. It comes from project management, so it sounds a bit boring, but it's a great way to just triage what's going on in your head. Is this idea of a risk register, and it's if it was a spreadsheet, it'd be like 4 columns. And so the first column is the event or the situation that you can think of that might happen. And you write that down. You just brainstorm all the things that you think might happen over the next couple of weeks to a month. And then you have 2 columns next to it, which are the scoring columns. And the first column, you then go through each of those things and you indicate in a score of 1 to 5 how probable that might happen, how probable that is going to be of happening.
Mm-hmm.
5 being super probable, 1 is probably very unlikely. And you just go through that for each one. And then you go to the next column and it's about impact. And so 5 is a massive impact to your work and your life and your business. 1 is minimal impact. And you do that scoring again. And so if you with that scoring, you then go to the third column, which is the risk. And basically you multiply the probability by the impact, and the higher that number, the more important that thing is to you.
Okay.
And that's what you should be addressing. And then actually there's a 5th column is the action. What are you going to do to mitigate that event or that risk?
Okay. So was there anything interesting that came out for you, or things like, oh, this is something that we need to take action on now, or these things that actually we don't need to worry about so much? Is there anything like that for you?
Yeah, well, it kind of reinforced, more than anything, it reinforced what you're already aware of. But it then downgrades everything else that was background processing.
Nice.
All the
So
background
much energy, right? The worrying.
Yeah, exactly. All the worrying. So that actually, it's there. You're aware of it, but you can see relative to these other things, you don't need to spend your time on that because it isn't going to have a massive impact on the way you're working at the moment. So then it just provides a real clear focus that 2, 3, 4 things at the top of the list that have the highest risk scores. Those are the things you need to work on. And those are the things that you need to be creative about. And you need to spend energy thinking about how can we address this from a place of openness and creativity.
Okay, cool. Do you need to go soon, by the way? I think you mentioned 2:30. Have you got?
I can probably work, I can go on for another 15 minutes if you want.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So for people who are on the call, maybe they have a business or they're running a business, they're feeling quite anxious. You've given all these kind of different tips. Is there anything else that comes to mind, or is it more about slowing down, taking a step back and reflecting?
So I would say there's some general things. So one person in our community talks about client care. And I think, and the thing that we've done even before we knew there was going to be a lockdown was to just get in touch with people and see how they're doing. All of your customers, all your current clients, just say to create a channel of communication. Because the problem is when you're in a state of fear, then you assume the worst of everyone. And then it turns into a battle at some point because they don't really care about you, or you built up this message in your head, it's like they don't really care about you.
Mm.
So the earlier we can create those conversations and reach out to, our core clients, if you've got big client lists, it might be difficult, but your core clients,
Mm.
and just say, how you doing, how's things going? And I know someone, and this is maybe drastic, but he actually went out to one of his biggest customers and said, I know it's going to be hard right now, why don't we just dial down my work? Why don't we just, rather than having to commit to all the stuff that you committed to, we'll cut it in half so that you can deal with your stuff, and I can serve you the best way I can.
Mm.
That's a risk, because that's taking money off your table, but at the same time, he was really showing his understanding of where that other customer might be.
Yeah. So connecting, I think communication, we've talked about a bit earlier with community as well. Community, communication, the words are very similar too. So
Yeah.
that importance of, even if you have a lot of people that you're in touch with, just sending a message and telling them that you understand the things that they're going through, and maybe giving some opportunities or forums for sharing like you have, sound like a really wise thing to do.
Yeah. Like, for instance, with our summer camp 2 weeks ago, we just emailed them and say, how's it going? I mean, this is happening. How's it affecting you? How are you, what's your view on things? We're still committed to doing this event, but we're also aware that this is happening. We want to just touch base and see if you have any thoughts.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. No, that's good. Wonderful. I think that's all the questions that come to mind. In terms of how people how can our community support your community in terms of the Happy Startup School, and if they're running a business or want to start a business and they want to join your community, how would they go about doing that?
Cool. So let's start off with supporting. Simple thing is to sign up to our newsletter. If you go to thehappystartupschool.com, you can sign up.
Got the word "the" in it, yeah. The Happy Startup.
Happystartupschool.com, and just sign up there, and that just feels like, okay, people are listening. The other thing, if you want to hear more about what we talk about, you go to our podcast, and you can find that on Spotify, on SoundCloud, and on iTunes. And it's The Happy Entrepreneur.
Okay.
For that, you should be able to find it. And ultimately, I think it's just spreading the word about, I'm sure your community is very much like this. It's like it's looking beyond the money when it comes to business, and thinking about how can we change this narrative of what business is about, rather than it being a finite game. How can we make this an idea of an infinite game, and what that means for us individually? In terms of finding out more about the community, if you go to the website and you click on the link join, you'll have a list of all the, tells you a bit more about what our community is about. There's an application form there that you can fill out if you're interested in joining. And you can reach out to myself or Lawrence. We're on Twitter. I'm Kung Fu Carlos, and Lawrence is We Love Lean, and Lawrence is my co-founder, for those of you who don't know. Or just send us an email on hello@happystartups.co. Even it would be really nice if you found any value in this conversation or what you heard, just send a little email, say hi, and thank you very much. And that would make me feel really nice and very good. And if you did have any question about resources, I know a few people are asking about links to tweets and videos, then I can also send them to you as well. So
that's brilliant. We'll share it in our Facebook group, and we'll probably email it as well. So the email's hello@happystartups.co.
That's correct.
Cool. Okay, so the links there. Thank you. I suppose there's one final thing that just pops into my head, because we've talked about happiness, but we didn't really go into what it means for you. And it's not just about feeling good, but it goes a bit more beyond that. Could you, or maybe it is. Do you want to share a little bit? What do you mean? What do you mean?
So for me, it's very much around alignment and acceptance. And I think, your ACT stuff really resonates for me. Alignment is really about understanding when you do ACT and when you do stuff, when you create businesses or you have new ideas, how does that How is that in alignment with what you believe, with your values and your needs?
Mm.
um, and then the acceptance part is really that inner journey of, okay, who am I, what is it that I really do believe, what stuff is stuff that I've inherited that isn't really me, and what is stuff that resonates really deeply. And for instance, with the Happy Startup School, I have a really strong need for contribution and for connection. And that's why I do the Happy Startup School. And that's why it's a community, and I'm not trying to build a multi-billion-dollar app. It's like I would do this work anyway, um, even if I wasn't paid, and I would try and do it in some way because it's a need in myself. So when I find I'm able to accept that's my need, those are my things that I have to have, and then I'm be able to act in alignment with that, then that for me is happiness. And
Love
yeah,
that.
everything's rosy.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'd like to share my gratitude for what you guys do. I've been really in touch with you and Lawrence a lot over the years, and it was because of you guys that you encouraged me to share the idea of the museum. I always like to share, and that helped to start the whole non-profit, which is yeah, it's been an amazing journey, which I've really enjoyed as well. So we've been alongside on that, and so very much appreciate what you guys do. And
Well,
you're
thank you.
there's a great depth to what you guys do. It genuinely isn't just about the money. You understand the importance of money because if you need to survive, but you're thinking about what's got depth, what's authentic, what feels good, and you're creating the space for other people to share that. And I think in the area of business and entrepreneurship, that's really rare. As far as I've found. So it's really nice to have that. So thank you very much for doing that.
Well, thank you for all of your kind words, your energy, your enthusiasm, your wisdom. You know, if it wasn't for people like yourself, I don't think we would have got this far ourselves as well. And it's really about connecting with like-minded souls that makes this work.
Kung Fu Carlos. Thank you. Are you a black belt, by the way?
I am a 2nd degree black belt.
Oh my God, stand back. It's lucky we're on Zoom. James says, I wish you infinite, not finite results. That's good.
Oh, you do, James. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, have a great afternoon. Let's keep in touch. We will be supporting each other through this.
Thank you very much. And yeah, it's a great job for today. Yeah, excellent work. And it's amazing how many people you've got here still listening. Thank you very much for staying on board.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.